The age-old fight between tourists and locals is hitting Mexico City. Stephen Scott, CEO of Travel Hub 360 and the Oddessy Travel App, joins us right now to talk about what's going on there and other places. Really, Stephen, firstly, thanks very much for joining us. And secondly, kind of give me a thumbnail sketch of Airbnb's new rules. And do you think that, what Alistair talked about could really happen? The fact that it could really hurt mom and pop shops and allow the much larger entities to continue thriving.
Thank you for having me back, Sean. Yes, this is an element of increased tourism and an overflow from the pandemic. A digital nomad years ago was someone who just had that sort of flexibility with how they work, the amount of income they had, or the flexibility they had with their family. But now, because we have so many American workers being able to work from anywhere in the world truly, they're looking at destinations like Mexico City to provide them with that warm weather year-round, the destination cultural experience that they're looking for, and also something different as far as how they live their lives. And so these regulations may actually affect financially for individuals or corporations or small businesses, but truly it's going to grow and it's going to continue to provide a new revenue stream from a tourism standpoint.
Okay, so you talked about why many Americans and others are setting up shop. So how many have become digital nomads over the past 5 years, and where else do you see this thriving?
Yes, the last numbers they estimated were around 10,000. And so we should all know that that number is probably much higher. And that's why part of those regulations are to start to track who's staying where. Because if you have a high tourism amount coming into the country, you start to say, well, where are these people? And then when you start to have limited resources or a draining of natural resources in your city, you start to say, well, we must be housing many more people than we are actually counting. And so the good thing about this is that within the next couple of years, Mexico City and the country as well will start to understand more about who's actually living more long-term within the city. I was actually in Honolulu just about 2 years ago, and I participated in a leadership conference that was very much focused on the issues of not just Airbnb, but short-term housing and the effect it was having on the local population. And just like Mexico City, you're going to have situations where developers are going to build simply for short-term housing instead of for the local population. And if you have the local population start to not have housing, then tourism will be affected because now you'll have workers living an hour away from the Ritz-Carlton, Mexico City, instead of down the street. And so these sorts of things are happening around the world. Hawaii is an example. New York City has always struggled with things like this, and it will continue to happen across warm weather destinations.
You know, Stephen, I think you did a great job there of just spelling out the housing cost, the water issues that these cities are facing. So what's the alternative? Because clearly if people can work from anywhere and they can go to an exotic location such as wherever, Mexico City, the Dominican, Costa Rica, anywhere, why wouldn't they? And how do these locales move on? How do they deal with this?
Yes, it's going to take steps like this. It's going to need regulation. Tourism, to the regular traveler, it's just about going somewhere you want to go and you have a great time while you're there. But to make that engine work, it takes regulation, it takes laws, it takes taxation, it takes tracking of where individuals are, and security issues have to be accounted for. Because you don't want to have a situation where you're unbalanced. And that unbalanced situation will either generate tourism into areas that really shouldn't have it for security reasons, or it's going to generate tourism into destinations like Mexico City, where they're having water issues. There are neighborhoods within Mexico City right now that are having significant water issues. And if you are not understanding where those travelers are residing, then you're going to be utilizing resources that you were not planning for or have the ability to handle. And for example, just to take a shower or a bath, it is different than someone in Mexico City and how they use their water. And if we are not understanding where those travelers are, and if they are now
Right.
150 tourists inside of a building instead of 30, that's going to affect the local population.
Okay, Stephen, one final question here to kind of distinguish between people who are tourists go down for 7 or 8 days versus these nomads. Okay, how do you balance that? And what's wrong with an Airbnb for, say, me? I just want to go down, spend 6 days on the beach, and I don't want to stay at a resort.
Sure. So, our agency, we focus on luxury travel and, of course, our corporate and entertainment travel. There are moments in time when an Airbnb or a short-term rental is going to really meet the needs of a family or an individual who wants to have a full kitchen, who wants to have flexibility to go in and out or just be right on the beach. But there are going to be those moments when a resort or a hotel is going to far exceed the needs you have. It's going to exceed it when it comes to security. It's going to exceed it when it comes to service. And then it's also going to ensure that you are not overusing the resources of that particular neighborhood. And as we have heard, things can happen
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
maybe a local neighborhood is not prepared for. And a hotel or resort might actually give you what you need over that short-term rental.
Okay, Stephen Scott, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean.